The Jimmy Kimmel Live! Studio buzzed with tension, its bright lights sharp against the packed audience. Jasmine Crockett sat on the guest couch, her eyes fierce, her posture ready for battle. Kimmel, behind his desk, grinned like a fox, his voice, light but cutting as he leaned forward. "So, Jasmine, you've been taking on big names. Trump's one of them. He called you low IQ at a dinner. You heard that, right?" The crowd laughed, but Crockett's face stayed hard, her lips tight. She wasn't here to play. "I heard it," Crockett said, her voice clear and sharp. "Trump's out there, talking trash, calling me names while he's dodging the truth. He's a fool, and I'm here to prove it." Her words hit like a punch, and the audience roared, some clapping, others gasping. Kimmel's eyes gleamed, sensing blood. He played a clip of Trump at a Republican event, mocking Crockett as the Democrats' new star and saying they were doomed with her. The crowd laughed again, but Crockett's glare burned hotter. Kimmel leaned closer, his tone sly. "He says you're trouble for your party. Want to hit back? Maybe challenge him to something like an IQ test?" The crowd cheered, egging her on. Crockett's smile was cold, her voice steady. "I'd take him on any day," she said. "Trump's got no brains, just a big mouth. I'd crush him in a test or a fight." The audience went wild, their shouts shaking the studio. Kimmel clapped, loving the chaos, but Crockett's words were a spark, and Trump was watching. Across the country, Trump sat in his Mar-a-Lago office, the TV blaring Crockett's interview. His face reddened, his fists clenched, her words, "Fool, no brains," cutting deep. She dared to mock him, a sophomore congresswoman challenging the man who'd ruled the White House. His team hovered, nervous, as he grabbed his phone, his voice a growl. "She's a nobody," he spat. "I'll tear her apart." He typed a furious message to his followers, calling Crockett a loser and a liar, vowing to shut her up. Crockett stayed on Kimmel's stage, her eyes locked on the camera, her voice fierce. "Trump's scared," she said, her words like knives. "He hides behind his money, his fans, but he can't hide from me. I'm coming for him." The crowd roared louder, some standing, their cheers a wave of anger. Kimmel fanned the flames, his grin wide. "You're calling out the big guy," he said. "What's next?" Crockett's answer was simple, brutal. "I'll keep slamming him until he's done." Trump's phone lit up with alerts. His message was spreading, but so was Crockett's interview. Clips of her calling him a fool were everywhere, her challenge for an IQ test trending. His blood boiled, his voice a snarl as he called his team. "Get me on that show," he demanded. "I'll face her myself." The studio lights dimmed as Crockett left the stage, her heart pounding, her fight just beginning. She'd thrown down a gauntlet, and Trump was ready to pick it up, setting the stage for a clash that would leave only one standing. Crockett strode off Kimmel's stage, the audience's cheers still ringing in her ears, her heart pounding with fierce resolve. The green room was a blur of staff and screens, but her focus stayed sharp. Her words had struck Trump like a hammer, and she knew he'd hit back hard. Her phone buzzed with alerts. Trump's furious message calling her a loser and a liar was spreading fast, his followers raging online. She smirked, her eyes cold. "He's rattled," she told her aide, her voice clear and steady. "Let him come for me. I'm ready." In Mar-a-Lago, Trump paced his office, the TV replaying Crockett's Kimmel interview on a loop, her voice mocking him. "Fool, no brains," like a blade in his gut. His team scrambled, phones ringing as his message fueled a firestorm. But Crockett's clips were louder, her IQ test challenge a taunt that made him look weak. His face was red, his voice a snarl as he slammed a fist on his desk. "She's nobody," he roared. "I'll go to that show and crush her myself." His team nodded, terrified, booking a jet to L.A. Back in the Kimmel studio, the lights flared for the next segment, but the air crackled with the fallout of Crockett's words. Kimmel sat at his desk, his grin sly, reading viewer reactions on a tablet. "Jasmine lit a fire," he told the crowd, his voice sharp. "Trump's mad, and word is he's coming here to face her." The audience gasped, then cheered, their excitement a hungry roar. Crockett, watching from backstage, clenched her fists, her eyes blazing. She'd called Trump out, and now he was walking into her trap. Trump's jet roared toward Los Angeles, the cabin tense as he stared at his phone, Crockett's face everywhere. A new clip showed her at a Dallas rally, her voice booming, "Trump's a coward, hiding behind lies. I'll face him any day." The crowd's cheers stung worse than her words. She'd turned his attack into her victory, and he couldn't stand it. His hands shook, his voice low and venomous. "She thinks she's tough," he muttered. "I'll show her who's boss." He typed another message, calling her a fake leader who'd crash and burn. Crockett stood in a quiet corner of the studio, her team briefing her on Trump's jet landing soon. Her aide showed her his latest message, his pathetic jab at her leadership. She laughed, bitter and fierce, her voice steady. "He's walking into my fight," she said. "Let him talk. I'll tear him down." Her team had dirt, old Trump quotes contradicting his low IQ jab, proof he'd dodged debates. She'd use it to gut him on live TV, make him choke, on his own lies in front of the world. The Kimmel studio buzzed as the crowd waited, sensing a showdown. Kimmel leaned into the camera, his eyes gleaming, his voice sharp. "Folks, Trump's on his way, and Jasmine's ready to throw down." The audience roared, their cheers a battle cry. Crockett stepped back into the wings, her heart racing, her eyes locked on the stage. Trump was coming, his ego dragging him into her arena. She'd called him a fool, and now she'd prove it, her words a weapon to end him. The lights dimmed, the tension a living force, as the stage set for a clash that would burn everything down. Trump's jet touched down in Los Angeles, the tarmac gleaming under harsh lights as he stormed out, his face a mask of rage. The night air did nothing to cool his fury. Jasmine Crockett's Kimmel interview, her taunts calling him a fool and a coward, played on repeat in his mind. His team hustled him into a black SUV, their voices low, warning him of her growing support. Her clips were everywhere, her IQ test challenge making him a laughingstock. He gripped his phone, his voice a snarl. "She's a nobody," he spat. "I'll end her on that stage." In the Kimmel studio, Crockett stood backstage, her eyes fierce, watching the crowd's restless energy. The audience buzzed, their cheers from her earlier segment still echoing. Her aide rushed in, breathless, with news. Trump was minutes away, his team demanding airtime to set the record straight. Crockett's lips curled into a grim smile, her voice clear and sharp. "Let him come," she said. "I'll tear him apart." She clutched a folder of evidence, Trump's old quotes, his dodged debates, his lies laid bare. She was ready to bury him live. The studio lights flared as Kimmel took the stage, his grin sharp, his voice booming. "Folks, we've got a war. Tonight," he said, the crowd roaring. "Jasmine Crockett called out Trump, and he's here to fight back." He played a new clip of Crockett at her rally, her voice fierce. "Trump's scared, and I'm his reckoning." The audience cheered, some waving signs with her name. Kimmel leaned forward, his eyes gleaming. "She's ready, but Trump's coming in hot. Buckle up." The tension was electric, the stage a battlefield. Trump's SUV screeched to a stop, outside the studio, his team shoving through paparazzi. Inside, his blood boiled. Every screen showed Crockett's face, her words slicing him open. She'd turned his low IQ jab into a weapon, rallying her base while his faltered. He adjusted his tie, his voice low and venomous. "She thinks she's smart," he told his aide. "I'll make her regret this." He'd face her on Kimmel's stage, turn her challenge into his victory, and crush her in front of millions. He stormed toward the entrance, ready for war. Crockett paced backstage, her heart pounding, her resolve like steel. Her team fed her updates. Trump's team was spinning his arrival as a heroic stand, but she saw through it. He was desperate, his ego dragging him into her trap. She flipped through her folder, her voice steady as she rehearsed her attack. "He's a liar," she muttered, her eyes blazing. "I'll prove it." Her evidence was a blade, sharp enough to gut his lies, his legacy, his name. She'd make him choke on every word he'd thrown at her. Kimmel's voice cut through the studio, the crowd's roar shaking the walls. "We're moments away from history," he shouted, his eyes sharp. "Jasmine Crockett's here, Trump's walking in, and this stage is about to explode." The audience stood, their cheers a battle cry, some chanting Crockett's name, others jeering for Trump. The lights pulsed, the tension a living force, as Crockett stepped toward the stage's edge, her eyes locked on the entrance where Trump would appear. She'd called him out, and now he was here, stepping into her fire. The clash was seconds away, and she'd burn him down without mercy. The Jimmy Kimmel Live stage crackled with raw tension. The audience's roars a deafening storm as Jasmine Crockett stepped into the spotlight, her eyes blazing with fierce determination. Trump stormed in from the opposite side, his face red, his fists clenched, his presence a volatile mix of rage and bravado. Kimmel stood between them, his grin sharp, his voice booming over the chaos. "Welcome to the fight of the century," he shouted, the crowd erupting. "Jasmine Crockett called Trump a fool, and he's here to fire back." The lights burned hot, the stage a powder keg ready to explode. Crockett faced Trump, her voice clear and cutting, her posture unyielding. "You're here, Trump, but you're still a coward," she said, her words sharp as glass. "You called me low IQ, but you're the one dodging truth, hiding behind lies." The audience cheered, some waving signs with her name, others jeering. She held up her folder of evidence, her eyes locked on his. "I've got your quotes, your failures, right here. Ready to face them, or you running again?" Her taunt was a blade, and the crowd roared louder, hungry for blood. Trump's eyes narrowed, his voice a growl, his hands shaking with fury. "You're a nobody, Crockett," he spat, stepping closer. "I built empires while you're out here, whining, making up lies to get famous. You want to fight? I'll bury you." The audience gasped, then cheered, split between his loyalists and her supporters. His words were venom, but his face betrayed a flicker of fear. She was hitting harder than he'd expected. He turned to the crowd, his voice louder. "She's a loser, and I'm here to prove it." Kimmel jumped in, his eyes gleaming, his voice sly. "Whoa, this is getting wild," he said, fanning the flames. "Jasmine, you challenged him to an IQ test. Trump, you in, or you scared?" The crowd laughed, their cheers a taunt. Crockett's smile was cold, her voice steady. "He's terrified," she said, her eyes boring into Trump. "He knows I'd win because he's got nothing but hot air." She opened her folder, reading a Trump quote praising his own genius while dodging a debate. The audience roared, her evidence a gut punch. Trump's face reddened, his voice a snarl as he lunged forward, pointing at her. "You're twisting my words, you liar," he shouted, his hands shaking. "I'm smarter than you'll ever be, and everybody knows it. You're just a loudmouth with no game." The crowd gasped, some cheering, others booing, the tension suffocating. Crockett didn't flinch, her voice rising, sharp and fierce. "Loudmouth, I'm your mirror, Trump, showing the world your empty lies. You're done, and I'm the one ending you." Her words were a flamethrower, and the audience went wild, the studio shaking. Kimmel leaned back, his grin wide, his voice sharp. "This is war," he shouted, the crowd on its feet, their screams a battle cry. Trump's eyes darted, his breath heavy, Crockett's relentless attack cracking his armor. She stepped closer, her voice low, lethal, her eyes burning. "You called me a nobody, but I'm your nightmare," she said, her words a death knell. "Keep talking, and I'll bury you deeper." The audience roared, the lights pulsing, the stage a furnace of hate, as the clash burned hotter, with no end but destruction in sight. The Jimmy Kimmel live stage was a battlefield, the air thick with the venom of Jasmine Crockett's and Donald Trump's unrelenting war. The audience stood, their roars a deafening chaos, split between Crockett's fierce supporters and Trump's defiant loyalists. Crockett held her ground, her eyes blazing, her voice a razor as she faced Trump, her folder of evidence raised like a weapon. Trump's face was a storm of rage, his hands trembling, his voice hoarse from shouting. Kimmel watched from his desk, his grin sharp, his voice cutting through the din. "This is it, folks," he shouted. "Jasmine and Trump, no holding back." The lights burned hotter, the stage a furnace of hate. Crockett stepped forward, her voice clear and brutal, her words slicing deep. "You're finished, Trump," she said, her eyes locked on his. "You called me a liar, but I've got your truth right here. Lies, failures, a man too weak to face me." She slapped a document on the desk, a 2018 Trump quote, dodging a debate, claiming he was too busy. The crowd roared, some chanting her name, others booing, her evidence a blade in his gut. "You're no genius," she spat. "You're a fraud, and I'm here to end you." Her words were fire, burning away his defenses. Trump's eyes bulged, his voice a ragged snarl as he lunged closer, his finger jabbing at her. "You're nothing, Crockett," he screamed, his face red. "A fake, a nobody, trying to ride my name to fame. I'm the winner, and you're just trash." The audience gasped, then erupted, the divide a bleeding wound. His words were desperate, his bravado cracking under her relentless assault. He turned to the crowd, his voice breaking. "She's lying. I'm the best, and you know it." But the cheers were weaker, his grip on them slipping. Kimmel leaned in, his eyes gleaming, his voice sly. "Jasmine's got receipts, Trump," he said, holding up her document. "You dodging that IQ test yet?" The crowd laughed, their jeers, a taunt. Crockett's smile was ice, her voice steady. "He's running scared," she said, her eyes boring into Trump. "I'd crush him, and he knows it. Look at him, shaking, sweating, done." She pulled out another paper, a Trump tweet, calling himself stable genius. The audience roared, her evidence a final nail, his lies exposed for all to see. Trump's hands shook, his voice a broken howl as he stepped closer, his face inches from hers. "You're dead, Crockett," he spat, his words venom. "I'll sue you, ruin you, wipe you out. You're nothing without me." The crowd gasped, some cheering, others booing, the tension a killing field. Crockett didn't blink, her voice low, lethal, her eyes burning with hate. "Sue me?" she said. "You're the one ruined, Trump. I'm your end, and you're already gone." Her words were a guillotine, and the audience screamed, the studio a furnace of destruction. Kimmel stood, his voice sharp, the crowd on its feet, their roars apocalyptic. "It's over!" he shouted, but Crockett raised a hand, her voice a death knell. "You're nobody, Trump," she said, her eyes cold. "I've broken you, and I'll keep breaking you until you're dust." She turned, storming off the stage, her evidence left behind, a smoking gun. Trump stood frozen, his face a ruin, his name a curse. The crowd's cheers followed Crockett, a requiem for his legacy, as the lights died, leaving him alone in the wreckage of her ruthless victory.